What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be breaking down the Detroit Lions' 7th round pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, Jermar Jefferson. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, everybody, to the video. Glad you guys are here. And we are into this breakdown of Detroit Lions draft picks. But I thought I'd mix it up a little bit this year. Last year, we did this, but we started from the first pick in the draft the Lions made and went through to the last pick they made in the draft. But this year, I thought we'd do it backwards. Let's start with the last pick the Lions made and work our way to the first pick they made in the draft. Most people know about the early prospects. They know more about those guys. So I thought we'd start off with the, end of the draft prospects first and kind of work through that way. I don't know. Just a different way to mix it up. So today we're talking about Jermar Jefferson, the running back out of Oregon State. And man, I'm excited to do this one. I'm excited because I didn't know a lot about this running back. I really did. I've heard his name a few times. I didn't know a lot about this running back, though, until, of course, we drafted him. But I wasn't counting out the idea of drafting a running back. When I did my prediction, I predicted a 5th-round running back, but, of course, we ended up getting the 7th-round pick because of the trade with the Cleveland Browns. But I had us getting a running back in the draft, and the Detroit Lions instead waited until the 7th round to get one. But this may be a 5th-round talent in Jermar Jefferson, maybe even higher than that. If you look at his statistics, you'll notice that there is consistent production from Jermar Jefferson, okay? Year in and year out, there's consistent production. Now, his freshman year, he was just dominant. I mean, the guy averaged 143 yards per game. That's insane. Rushing yards per game, that is. But throughout his entire career, 108 yards rushing per game. That's not a stretch. That's not a season. That's his entire career, over 100 yards per game. That's obviously extremely impressive when we consider the Lions. We would love to have a guy like that. Not saying that the NFL and college are same, but yeah, I mean, those are great numbers. But I think I know why there is consistent production, and we'll get to that in a second. You'll be wondering why his numbers haven't hit that freshman season threshold. Well, remember, last season was a short season. He only played in 6 games last year. Okay, so if you take a look at his statistics, if they would have played in 12 games, which is a normal college football schedule, he would have been on pace to have 14 rushing touchdowns, 1,700 rushing yards on 6.5 yards per carry, as well as 18 receptions. So, yeah, he didn't put up those numbers, but he only played in 6 games. So, as fantastic as he was freshman year, he was also set to have a really good year in 2020 as well. But I want to address this big concern before we get into strengths and weaknesses, and this is the relative athletic score. So, I took a look at his relative athletic score after I watched some of the film, and it came out terrible. I mean, it was awful RAS score. It was somewhere in the 2 range. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was bad. And people were worried about that. They're like, man, this RAS score is bad. He doesn't have a high ceiling. How's this going to work in the NFL? Because it's all about speed right now. And after I did my film, took my notes, I went out and I looked at some other opinions. What did certain people, what did people feel about Jermar Jefferson coming out of this draft class? And I saw a lot of, he won't be a big play threat. He's not super fast. And while they're right to an extent because he does lack some of that top speed, he can definitely be a very consistent and a big play threat at the next level. So I was looking through some numbers on this. Last season, he had 11 carries for over 15 yards, which was one of the best in the country. I can't remember exactly what year this is from, but I was looking up some numbers. And one year, out of the top big play rushers in the league from the running back position, 8 of the top 12 ran their 40 time in a 4.57 or slower. Now, his was a 4.55, so it's even faster than that. But people are worried about the athleticism side to his game. How are they able to make those plays? Because it's the vision that sets a guy like Jermar Jefferson apart. And we'll get into that in a second. But I think that's what sets him apart from other guys. I think he's a very scheme-specific type of running back. And he was drafted to the right scheme. He was drafted to a zone-blocking rushing scheme, which is what Anthony Lynn's background is. It's what Penei Sewell fits in the best. That's what he was drafted for. And there was actually an NFC scout that said this. He'll be picked by a zone-blocking team and will have 900 rushing and 7 touchdowns in his 2nd season. Now, that's obviously great. We would love to have that as Lions fans. But that is what one NFC scout said because he fits so well in this scheme. Now, outside of that, you can see maybe some limitations because he's not the most creative runner, but that's where he fits his best. You throw him into a zone blocking scheme and he's going to be successful. I just wanted to address that. See, I know it's easy to get caught up in the relative athletic score, and I think certain positions is more important than others. And yes, he's not going to be a burner or some kind of, top-end speed guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important to mention that I don't really worry about that too much. All right, what I'm more worried about is, can the guy read holes? Can he find space? Does he have good vision? Is he patient? Because I've seen running backs for the Detroit Lions that literally just run into a pile when there's nothing there. And yeah, they might have the top end speed to break it a few times, and they'll have some big plays make say, oh my goodness, but there's no consistent production there because they can't consistently read the holes of a defense. They can't consistently find space as a runner. but he can. That's why he has consistent production. It's not because he has this great speed, but he also has consistent big plays because he can find his way and navigate his way through a defense. Maybe he doesn't have the crazy athletic upside, but I'm not too worried about that. I just want a running back that can pick his way through a defense. We're supposed to have an above average offensive line for sure next season, a pretty darn good offensive line. So I need a running back that can read the defense, go through the lanes, follow his blockers, and make plays that way. All right. And I think DoseOfDion can help with guys like Kerryon Johnson in that area. Let's get into these strengths and weaknesses, even though I kind of just touched on some for the 5'10", 206-pound running back out of Oregon State. Let's start off with these strengths first, then I'll slide over to the weaknesses, and we'll kind of bounce around a little bit here. The first strength I have is incredible vision. Now, we just kind of touched into that, but that touches a lot of areas in the game. But vision as a whole, in general, is really, really good. And that's kind of what his game has been based on. And that's why he's had that production that he's had. And everybody will tell you he has great vision. But it's also his ability to follow his blockers, set up his blockers, set up defenders behind blockers. All right, he's a very patient runner. I've seen some people compare him to a guy like Le'Veon Bell. I've seen Jordan Howard. I've seen Devontae Freeman. The thing that I love is probably his change of direction. Now, this and balance tie together. His change of direction is extremely smooth. There's no choppiness in it. There's no loss of balance. His change of direction is what makes him awesome, especially on the outside when he gets outside the tackles to beat defenders, because he has a weird way of kind of weaseling his way through holes, kind of make his body small, kind of shrivel up and squeeze through, little crevices of the defense. But his balance and change of direction is so smooth, and he can just slide from one way to another, and he sets up his defenders so well. He's not the most elusive running back, but what he can do is he can set you up to the outside and then cut back inside with no balance issues whatsoever. And a tie with balance is his contact balance. He can take some hits, he can take some smacks, but for the most part, he's going to stay on his feet. Tackle breaker, he's kind of like a Jamal Williams in the way, remember we did our Jamal Williams tape? He's like a Jamal Williams way where he's a build-up tackle breaker. I mean, I think he's lacking some strength here, but he plays with the mentality of a guy that's going to run through you. And that works once he builds up a little bit. Once he gets about 5, yards and he's running downfield, maybe he hasn't been touched yet, and he's, getting a full head of steam, he's going to hit you hard. He's going to try to run through you. Like, he's not afraid of contact. He invites contact. So if you want to tackle him, you got to get him low, because if you're going to tackle him high and he's going downhill, he's going to run through some of those. As a consistent, just a normal guy that's going to break tackles in the backfield, things like that, that's not as much there. It takes a little bit to build up, but he's a build-up kind of tackle breaker that definitely invites contact, has no issues with that at all. As a pass blocker, I actually don't think he's that bad as a pass blocker. People have given him big knocks there, but I think he's a pretty good pass blocker. And Deuce Staley said, hey, if you can't pass block, you won't play here. And I'm sure they saw some things on film that they liked of his pass blocker. I certainly did in 2020. Okay, I saw awareness, I saw willingness. Now, there was, occasions, and actually this one was from 2019, when he gets run over by a pass rusher because he's kind of standing flat-footed, but it's not like he's a liability as a pass protector, which will allow him to play on third downs. Also, as a pass catcher, another place he gets knocks because he wasn't super involved as a pass catcher for that Oregon State offense, but he's only had one drop in his entire career, even though he hasn't done much as a, lining out a slot, things like that. He only has one drop on all of his passing attempts, passing targets, I should say, for Oregon State. He's just been a huge part of that offense. It does remind me a lot of a guy like Jamal Williams, and, Lions obviously signed him, I think, for a lot of similar reasons, because of the vision, the ability to kind of run through tuna tackles, having that mentality that you want from a running back, that kind of thing. I think, and of course the versatility, that he's shown that he can catch the pass when they're throwing to him, even though he's not much of a passing threat as a Swift or something like that. And also because he can be a pass protector as well. So I can see why the Lions like a guy like this, not as much caught up in the athletic side. And I'm honestly, like, it is what it is. Jamal Williams, look at his RAS score. It was terrible as well. For him, it's all about, reading the holes of a defense and running extremely hard. Now, we get into the weaknesses side. It's a couple of things I've already mentioned. A lot of it comes in the athletic side of the game for him. Set himself up in positions to make some big plays, big runs, because he can fill through those gaps. But there is that lacking top speed to finish off those plays. A little bit with DeAndre Swift as well. Like, we've seen that they don't have that home run type of speed. But if you can read the defense, that's great. If you can't read a defense, your speed is never going to be shown off. I mean, think about it like this. How many times do you see guys running their 40 in a football game? You don't see that very often. For example, all right, the player with the most 50-plus yards runs in NFL history is Barry Sanders. He had 15. That's it. 15. He has the most in NFL history. I know he only played 10 seasons. That's just how great he was. But he's only had 15 50-plus yard touchdown runs. That's it. That's all. All right, not many times are you running your full 40 speed. About how fast can I run in a straight line? It's usually not about that for the running backs because they're usually going to get stacked box. They're usually running between tackles, and this guy definitely will be running between the tackles. So I'm not really too worried about that top end speed as much. Yeah, you would love more top end speed that we could finish off some of those plays, but if I had a guy that had great top end speed but doesn't have any clue where he's running, that's the bigger issue. All right, the fact that this guy is widely known as having some of the best vision in the class is the reason that he's going to translate to the NFL, because that translates. All right, speed can, but if you don't have the other things, it's not going to. Speed is not everything, because if it was, you just see a whole bunch of track guys out there playing football. That's not how it works, okay? You're wearing pads, you're not wearing shorts. Yes, he does lack some elusiveness. It's really his change of direction and ability to set up defenders, set up blockers to get in front, and kind of like I said, kind of just squeeze his way through gaps. He's not super elusive where in space he's going to shake you consistently, but he can kind of just glide his way from one side of the field to the other like this, like very smooth with no loss of balance, keeping at a good pace, not really having to slow down. He's not going to shift and break angles very often, but he can kind of just slide out of the way and make defenders miss, where it's really tough for defenders, especially in the box, to change direction at his pace. They really don't do it that well. So for him, his ability to kind of just float around, slide around, especially and set up his blockers, set up defenders, kind of see where they're going, and then cut inside with that quick cut, plant his foot and drive inside. That's what, allows him to make defenders miss, rather than being on an island and being super elusive. On an island, he's probably not going to consistently make guys miss, but when you guys are trying to pursue you and you're going this way, they're going that way, and you can kind of change direction. He lacks pretty much all of the elite athleticism. He's not actually super strong either in terms of his testing numbers, but when you watch him play, he runs with a strong mentality, which is great. I didn't see a lot of fumbles, however, I did see one at the end of the game. So it doesn't seem like a problem. He seems like he does cover the ball up usually pretty well, but I did see one fumble. Like I said, catching the football wasn't really involved. I mean, his rookie year he only had 2 incompletions when they threw his way. I think it was a very schematic thing for them, and he probably won't be extremely involved for the Detroit Lions, but there's no doubt you can throw screens to him. He can throw swing passes, and he can make guys miss, and he can get upfield because he can follow those blockers. And you think about it, Penei Sewell, right? What did he do best at Oregon? Well, he played in an offense that was a lot of screens, screen heavy, get to the outside, block in space. He follows his blockers. I mean, that's just a great matchup on paper. That's a great tandem on paper when you talk about schematic fits. Making guys miss, he can make you miss in the backfield, but breaking tackles early usually isn't much of a thing there. Catch him early in his runs. He's probably not breaking a lot of tackles. Not extremely strong, but once he gets rolling, he runs very hard. So defenders, especially smaller ones, they'll get ran through. His acceleration isn't outstanding either. You'll see him get beat to the edge from weak side defenders that are kind of working around to the outside. So you want to be able to pick those guys up. Sometimes he does have a tendency to come too slow out of the backfield. Feels too fast. For the most part, up on occasion. So I think he's going to translate. But there were like a couple of times when he did show you a couple of hops, and it was like, okay, yeah, this isn't going to go very far. But he does consistently fall forward. Usually when guys hit him, he's going to fight and fall forward. And outside of the zone scheme, he may be less productive. There may be less creativity there. There may be, less upside there. Clearly, there's a cap on what he's probably going to do athletically, but he can definitely translate to the NFL. And this is the type of running back that I want. I don't want a running back that's, fast but has no idea where he's going. I want a running back that can see things. If we're going to run a zone blocking scheme, vision comes first. Change of direction, balance, those are all important as well. But if you can't see, if you can't pick and choose your way through gaps, through seams, it doesn't really matter how well your offensive line does. For the most part, I mean, in general, there's always going to be one guy free. So if you can't see anything, it's going to be a mess anyways, especially in a zone blocking scheme, which relies on the running back to kind of pick and choose the holes on where he thinks things are setting up. So he's going to be a day one impact player. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this guy became the number 3 back, pushed for the number 2 back position early in his career. I like Jermar Jefferson. A lot of people projected him round 4, round 5. I think he fell because he's very scheme dependent, number 1, right? He's very zone scheme dependent. And number 2, he does have athletic limitations. There's no question about that. Like athletically, he's not going to be, insane. But there are guys that also have athletic limitations that have done really, really well in the NFL, and I think that's kind of where he could be sliding for the Detroit Lions. So I like the pick. I mean, I was fine with the thought of the running back, but I think this is one of those picks where, hey, 257, first off, you can't really go wrong at 257 because most part they're probably not going to work out anyways, but I do like it. And this isn't, I don't even feel like I'm being biased with this. After watching him play, I really like watching him play. I really do. And I just think there's a lot of translatable traits, okay? There's less risk to this. I feel like he's going to translate to the NFL. So So I would give this, honestly, and we'll go through these individually. I'm going to give this an A grade. Some people didn't like the thought of running back. Like, why do we take running back? I mean, you have to. You have a guy that wants to run the football. You bring in the offensive line. You have a guy and Anthony Lynn that had 4 running backs over 200 yards rushing last season. You had injuries with Kerryon Johnson. Swift's coming off an injury. You got Jamal Williams for 2 years. That's really good. But my point is, I'm like, you got to have depth at running back. I mean, how many times in the past have we had to go through practice squad running backs, and we got guys like Trey Carson and things like that? Not to say there's anything wrong with them, but the point is, like, that's not where you want to be. You want to have depth there, that every time you put in a running back, it's not, oh gosh, we got worse. It's, hey, look, we got another running back that we believe in, especially a guy like Jefferson who could be a part of the future. I mean, think about how much the offense just fell off when DeAndre Swift was not there. Now we have our backup option in Jamal Williams. But what happens, when Jamal Williams was rotate in? You got to have a trustworthy guy to rotate in. I think Kerryon has the upside. I really do. I think Kerryon can be a good player and get back to that. He just needs to find a way to stay healthy. But it's going to take some work with Deuce Staley. That was a great hire by the Detroit Lions to get him an opportunity to work with a new running back coach and, potentially prove himself this year. This is just more competition. It's going to push him. If it's not that guy, if he doesn't take that role for not only this season, but also for the future, Jermar Jefferson. We have signed some UDFA guys, but those guys, they're kind of built like fullbacks almost in a way. And Rakeem Boyd wasn't really that great last season for Arkansas. So, yeah, I like the pick. I'm giving it an A. We'll see what the rest are given. Again, I didn't want to grade these initially because I didn't get to watch film, but now I'm getting into film with these guys individually. He gets an A for me. I love this draft pick more and more. I like the thought of the running back, but the fact that we got him with 3 picks to go, with 2 picks left, I mean, dude, I think the value is through the roof here. He's just scheme specific, but I think he fits our scheme. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.